Assalamualaikum and good evening, everyone. Welcome to the 20th episode of More Than Just Money, a series on everything Islamic finance. Tonight's topic, Does Money Grow on Trees, will feature our two guests, Mr. Hamid Rashid, Head of Investor Relations at Finterra, and Prof Ahcene Lahsasna, CEO of Salihin Shariah Advisory. Just a brief profile of our two guests. Hamid Rashid is the founder of the award-winning blockchain technology company Finterra, responsible for developing the first ever Wakaf chain, a crowdfunding platform for Wakaf development built on the blockchain, as well as the Galactic Blockchain Network. He successfully runs corporate offices in Malaysia, Singapore, Hong Kong, and United Arab Emirates. Hamid is a 20-year veteran in technology IP development and technology commercialization, having served corporate giants like HP, Petronas, and UNME Communications Inc. He has established a record of outperformance across an array of financial strategies and innovative products. He speaks 4 languages and takes pride to have lived for more than 5 years in each continent, which has shaped him into a real thought leader. And just like blockchain, he prides himself on being a decentralized global citizen. As for Prof Ahcene, Dr. Ahcene Lahsasna is the CEO of Salihin Shariah Advisory and the Chief Academic Officer of Salihin Academy in Malaysia. He also serves as the Vice President and Council Member of the Malaysian Financial Planning Council and is the Academic Director of Singapore Islamic Finance Academy, or SIFA. He has authored more than 20 books and has been the recipient of the Global Business Leadership Islamic Finance Award in 2017 and 2019. So sit back while we interview both of our fellow panelists. If you have any questions, you can send it on the comment section of either our Facebook or YouTube feed. Without further ado, let's jump to the first question. Finterra is doing a lot of things from blockchain, payment, gateways, e-wallets, microfinancing, Wakaf, to even plantations investing. How would you describe, Mr. Hamid, Finterra to someone new?
Thank you, Ridwan. Assalamu alaikum and good evening, everyone. Thank you for the introduction, Ridwan. Yes, Finterra since 2017 has been involved in quite a number of ventures. And the most recent venture is actually a plantation. And even I myself am surprised that we got into plantation. The intent of Finterra back in 2017 and 18 was Islamic fintech, looking very specifically into Islamic social finance. So we looked at Sadaqah-based solutions, we looked at Zakat, and also Wakaf. And we settled ultimately on Wakaf in 2018, and we launched the Wakaf chain platform in February of 2019. And why Wakaf? Because we saw that there is a charity element in Wakaf, as well as there is asset management opportunity, scalability opportunity in Wakaf. And blockchain at that time made sense because what we were looking at is to create a completely autonomous and democratic way of operating Wakaf. Based on our surveys, our interactions with a lot of Wakaf, religious affairs in many different countries, we felt that there were certain inherent issues within the Wakaf administration, historic, inherent issues. Now, to overcome those issues, digitization, automation, yes, made sense. But then digitization, automation in government sector, public sector like Wakaf is basically having a laptop and Microsoft Office. That's good enough, right? And few of the Wakaf, what they have done in the world is maybe they have a database where they're registering their assets into a centralized database. And some of them have an accounting system to account for the debits and credits that are coming in. So we thought that moving forward 5 years, what are the new technologies coming up? And blockchain was a good contender, and we built a solution around blockchain. We can always talk about pros and cons of using blockchain, but yes, we did end up using blockchain. So Finterra moved from that Islamic social finance Wakaf chain solution from charities and into asset management, just selling software to different Wakaf and many different agencies around the world. Till I guess pandemic came. And in 2020, we just had to reinvent ourselves because the income from software was just not sufficient. And we were playing in new solution, new market. So the sale is just very difficult. The sales cycles are very difficult, very lengthy sales cycles. And a lot of those sales cycles were to religious councils around the world, and a lot of face-to-face interaction was required. So when that could not happen, our revenue started going down in 2020. So that's where we thought that the technology that we have developed, why don't we get into a project development? And that's where this plantation came about. And I think I'll address that maybe later. How did we actually fall into a plantation business versus some other business? So today in technology, Finterra, of course, blockchain solution is one. We also have e-wallet solution, because to hold the credits, whether fiat or crypto, so wallet solution. We also have a cross-border payment system, which we have implemented into few banks in the Middle East. We also have Islamic microfinance solution. And the latest one is a wealth management system that we just launched early this year called Finterra Ventures. So a wealth management system. So currently we kind of have these 5 or 6 solutions. Some clients use parts of it. Otherwise, we are using it to onboard clients and to service the clients. Yeah.
Shouldn't Finterra already be listed in the exchange already?
I don't think we have gone to that large revenue yet. Yes, there are a sizable number of users on the platform, but I think we're still pushing on the revenue side.
Understand. Okay, I think we move on to the second question. So as you mentioned earlier, how did the idea of plantations investing come about? Was it something you came across overseas with your team?
No, we did not. See, when we speak about Wakaf, we are speaking about sustainability. We are speaking about green initiatives. We are speaking about Sharia compliant or halal initiatives, right? So that was our mindset from day one. So when we started looking into project development, we did look into actually general plantation, but automatically you'll never think about timber plantation. You start thinking about horticulture, like coconut, durian, pineapple, fruits, vegetables, all of that. But I guess one good thing that we had in mind was any approach to project development should be financial. So a financial due diligence need to be done, a feasibility study needs to be done, and a structuring needs to be created. Whichever project passes that, only then we'll get involved in that project. So we did look at, with Wakaf Penang, we looked at property development and we did due diligence on the project. We looked at Yayasan Wakaf Putrajaya, we looked at a school and campus development. So we did look at many projects, and I would say that maybe 20 projects failed, meaning we did not go in, just did not stack up. At the end, the timber plantations stack up, because I guess we were able to put together a very good, JV or partnership. So the land would come from one of the largest listed plantation company here in Malaysia. They provided the land. We had the planting partner who had 20 years of experience in this specific plantation, and we were good in the technology and the structuring. So when the 3 partners came together, it just made natural sense, and the P&L, the balance sheet just looked very good, feasible, and that's where we put in our time and effort to get into a timber plantation, which has, of course, inherent advantages, not like the fruit and vegetable where there is perishable, right? You don't need to sell immediately. You don't need to harvest it in a given time. You can just leave it, let it grow. The larger it grows, the easier it is to sell. And the prices are very stable. And Malaysia is known to be a major hub for timber export. So just, this year it's expected that Malaysia will be exporting 25 billion ringgit worth of timber from the Malaysian Timber Council. And the type of timber that we are doing is highly priced and high in demand. So that's, I guess those are some of the reasons and ways that we got into this project development.
So basically you had a lot of projects, and this plantations investing came.
Yes. So I think is always to get into a project, you have to look at the project has to be safe. It should make commercial sense, right? All the T's and C's should be very clear. It's not just our money at risk, but also our partners, our investors' money at risk. So we had to be ultra conservative in the project scope and the project feasibility. Only then when we saw that even with that ultra conservative, it is a green project, then we got involved in it.
Well, I think let's move on to Prof Ahcene. Plantations investing seems to be very Sharia neutral, since it involves an industry that is Sharia compliant, and you are buying a sapling to be sold when it matures. Where does the Sharia compliance add value into the whole investment process, Prof Ahcene? Prof Ahcene, you're over to you.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. We
Yes,
can.
sir.
Thank you very much, brother, for the question. Coming back to your point on the investment, in overall, I may say that basically Sharia is yes, you point it rightly, is neutral when it comes to investment. Of course, you may see some kind of preference sometimes, pushing towards the equity versus debt. You may see some preference in the structuring of the project. But in overall, basically Sharia encourage investment, and basically. As long the project is compliance, is permissible, doesn't contain any prohibited elements, basically Sharia will, in a very simple way, grant the permissibility endorsement of the Sharia compliance and typically invite the investors to come in. Now, the good thing about the point that has been highlighted that's now by Brother Hamid is the agriculture sector. And as you know, when we look at the Islamic finance industry, we'll see the market is more aggressive towards the financial market, more toward the banking, of course, Islamic insurance, Islamic capital market. And overall, I may say the financial market. But the real economy is a bit lacking some kind of support in a way, meaning that investment, especially not only in the manufacturing sectors, but in the agriculture sector. And this is a very encouraging, in Sharia, because it's related to the production, sustainability, and so on and so forth. And I think we have witnessed just now the crisis of Russia and Ukraine on the export of those commodities. So you can see if the things are related to the agriculture, especially if it is related to the edible, you see more encouragements and support from the Sharia to go to that directions. And from that angle, we'll see that Sharia has designed basically a specific contract meant precisely for agriculture business or agriculture sector in general. Like, for example, the contract of Salam. Contract of Salam, it is designed specifically for agriculture. It is different than the Lahsasna, which is manufacturing and processing and developments. Salam, it is more related to the natural resources, commodities and agriculture product. We have also the Mugharasa, we have the Musaqat. These contracts are designed for plantations, for irrigations, for cropping, and so on and so forth. And more than that, as you can see, if you look at the IFE standard number 17, which is related to the investment, that kind of classifications of sukuk, which around 14 types of sukuk, includes as well sukuk Mugharasa, sukuk of Salam, sukuk of Muzara'a, which are more designed towards the agriculture business. So the good thing about it is that it is related to the real economy, and more importantly, the return is related to the performance of the underlying performance of the asset, which is in this case the return generated from those commodities and products. And this is good in a sense that it's create diversifications in the portfolio of the investments from the risk management perspective, meaning that you don't go all the way to the financial market, all the way to the equity. So you may combine between a financial market and real economic, and this is part of the diversifications of portfolio that basically fall within the parameters of Sharia. Thank you.
This is a very very extensive explanation by Prof Ahcene. Thank you so much, Prof Ahcene. I have some questions, but I think I'll move on to the next question. Following up to that, how is Finterra able to pay back the capital upon maturity of the project while providing tiered returns of 6% to 15%? Either one of you?
Oh, okay. Doctor, maybe I'll just take it in a brief way, and then maybe you can come with the principles behind it. How Finterra, structured it based on legal advice, based on the Sharia advice, and also our auditor's advice was initially we only started with 500 acres. Okay. So 500 acres, we needed 5.4 million as GDV to develop that plot of land. Initial funding was Finterra's funding. Majority of it was Finterra's own funding. And we piloted a few investors to come on board on a Musharaka contract. Okay. We started paying them dividend on those percentages that you mentioned. What we did was we took our own fund and we parked it with an independent fund manager in Singapore. Okay, our holding company. So we parked it there, and we created that pool, initial pool of fund, and the first 500 acre plus was paid. The dividends were paid out of that pool. Okay, so that was the first how the beginnings started. Now this was in 2020, but in 2018 we already had a pilot project in Rawang, about 70 acres, and that got harvested last year September. So already the revenue had started. Okay, so there's a small revenue also was coming into the company as profit, and we were using that fund also to pay dividend. A third way was what we started doing. Our holding company in Singapore, Finterra Private Limited, which owns the whole group, we also started taking certain loan advances from our holding company. And those advances were used to pay just the dividend. Okay. And the loan structure is such that we'll keep paying the dividend because the growth period is 40 months. And once on the 41st month, we get back our post-harvest, we get back our revenue. From the revenue, then we pay back the loan to our holding company. So I think so far in this 1.5 years, we have experimented with these three methods, right, of keeping the cash flow green at all times. And of course, we don't have volumes of investors. We only deal with accredited investors and very few investors so far. But this is the mechanism that we have used to pay to the investors on a monthly or quarterly basis.
Prof Ahcene, you want to add?
Yeah, if I may just add maybe one point. As you rightly mentioned, so basically the rates of return and the dividends, especially when it comes to the amount, it is not a Sharia, what's called a call, but it is a business call. But the principle is very clear that basically the capital is redeemed upon maturity, of course, if all are intact and sound and there is no kind of risk, because this is a principle of musharaka, meaning there is a risk taking. And as you know, in any kind of business, there is a risk taking on it. So provided everything is as projected, so basically capital will be redeemed. For the rates, of course, it is based on the cash flow projections, based on the life cycles of the underlying assets and so on and so forth. So if everything goes as per the productions, as the productions cash flow, as mentioned by Brother Rashid, so basically they will get what they expected. Now the mechanism that has been highlighted by Brother Rashid, it is apply in Sukuk as well in a different scheme of investments, locally and internationally. Whereby sometimes it is also used in the ijara, especially in the forward lease ijara, whereby some projected advance rate of return would be advanced based on the agreed ratio, then basically which in the case of Finterra is managed by the what's called Finterra Singapore. Then upon basically real productions, real revenue realization, so you just balance up your accounts, pay back or your obligations and so on and so forth. And the good thing is that the relations between Singapore, Finterra, and Malaysia, since it's a one-holder company, so the loan, even it is loan, so the issue will not be addressed from Sharia standpoint because it's one group. Of course, if it is obtained from a third party, like for example a bank or a third party provider, definitely will go through some Sharia compliance instruments for liquidity management, which is well known in the market, such as Tawarruk or a card or other instruments. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Just to add on, Ridwan, to Prof, how we have structured is the contract itself, our operational contract, is that all the timber that we are growing is on a contract buyback method. So we are not growing the timber and then hoping to sell it, market and sell it. We already have contract buyback from multiple sawmills here in Malaysia. Also, we have purchase order from some export market like China and Japan. So these contract buyback have a fixed buying price identified in it. So since from the time we actually plant the tree, we know our cost. We also know our revenue at the end of it. So basically revenue minus cost is our gross margin, right? So we are realizing, at least on paper, our profit. So say since we started this in 2020, we already have done audited our books for 2020 and 2021, right? Both years were profitable years, and we have paid our tax to LHDN. So he's already paid, he's been filed and all that. So somewhat, of course, the revenue has started coming in, but the rest of it is a recognized revenue, but it is only on paper, right? Because it is contractual, it is a contract buyback.
Okay, thank you so much to the both of you. It's a very extensive explanation to the structuring behind the plantations investing. But I think we want to move on to the next question about preferential shares. So as Prof Ahcene mentioned just now regarding the AUV Sharia standards, so Malaysia and the Middle East have different views on preferential shares. The former doesn't allow the former allows it, while the latter doesn't. Middle East doesn't allow it, Malaysia allows it. And since the method of fundraising is the issuance of Islamic redeemable preferential shares, can you explain, Prof Ahcene, how the preferential shares are made to be Sharia compliant?
Thank you very much for the question. Well, as you mentioned, preference share is among the debated issues in Islamic finance. Similar to other instruments as well, similar to Tawarruk in some jurisdictions, similar to Bai'ina in some jurisdictions, similar to Bai'adain, similar to charging fee on guarantees. So as you know, there are few, but not a lot, of course, there are few debated issues among the Sharia scholars within the Middle East, within Malaysia, and the Middle East as well. And as you mentioned, among them is the preference shares. Of course, IOP stand along with the International Academy, doesn't allow the preference shares. And basically the ground is one major issue, which is justice and equity.
Okay.
So that's the point. The major arguments is basically granting special incentives to the preference share, which is not granted to the ordinary shares. As a result of that, discrepancy will be addressed, and non-justice and equity will be there, which is not among the Sharia principles. So that's the arguments. On the other hand, from the Malaysian standpoint, especially the Shariah Advisory Council of the Security Commissions in basically July 1999, took the stand that the preferences are permissible. Now, the arguments and the main arguments of the SSC Malaysia is the principle of tanazul, meaning waiving of rights, or what's so-called isqatul haq, which means that the ordinary shares basically will waive their right in favor to the preference shares. So meaning that the issue of justice and equity that could be compromised is not addressed, because one of the requirements is that this kind of decision should be taken by the General Assembly of the company. So as long the General Assembly of the company and within the constitution of the company, they have allowed granting the issuance of preference shares, and they waive their rights and give the priority, of course, when it comes to the profit distributions, when it comes to the priority, when it comes to the voting rights. So as long the concept of tanazul or isqatul haq or waive of right is captured, so basically the issue of preferential arguments will not stand. So based on that, basically principle, in addition to the need of preference shares from a commercial standpoint, which is more relevant and appropriate in fundraising. So the stand of the SEC allowed the permissibility of the preferential. That's basically the main argument is the tenor concept, but it will remain one of the issues, of course, debated among the Sharia scholars. Yeah.
So I would like to follow up with a question, but I think I'll leave it to the end. But let's move on to the next question. Mr. Hamid Rashid.
Yes.
There seems to be a growing number of investments in plantations, from mango to Musang King to even walnut. What are the necessary safeguards or due diligence an investor must conduct before investing in such plantations investing?
I mean, I can't comment on all those other investment, but I can give a general, view how any investment must be assessed and how maybe Finterra Global Plantations investment product must be assessed, right? And it is highly advisable for anyone, whether retail or accredited or institutional investor, is to get an independent review and opinion on any investment, right? However secure it is and however it is promoted to be, right, is to get an independent. That's the first thing. Now, in any investment, right, or consideration for investment, the documents that are available must be reviewed, right? So, say in the case of Finterra Global Plantation, the document trail, we try to follow the SC guideline where there is a KYC application. And that KYC application in Malaysia, the credit rating bureau is CTOS and SICRIS. So once this application form is signed, we actually do a CTOS and SICRIS review and get that report out. Based on the passing of that report, then the prospective investor is given an application form. So the next part is the application form that they want to invest, and they consent to how much they want to invest. Okay, so that's the first part. Based on that application form, a term sheet is created by our legal team. So there is a term sheet. Term sheet is very clear on all rights of the investor, prospective investor, and the rights of the company, and all the clauses, right? Until this time, there is no monetary transaction. Once the term sheet is accepted, executed, right, then the funds of the investor are directly deposited into a trustee, independent licensed trustee by SC. So no funds are ever deposited into Finterra, right? So here it shows independence of fund management and also the regulatory compliance of deposit taking and the fund management, right? So it goes to a trustee. Now, once the funds are deposited, a subscription agreement for the share certificate is done. Now, this again is a full-fledged agreement, subscription agreement. This is signed and executed. This subscription agreement it talks about how much the investor is investing and how much dividend will be paid out over the period, right? So this form then, or this agreement, once is executed, goes to LHDN, meaning the tax office in Malaysia. Based on how much funds are coming in tax, they do a review of it, and they come out with a stamp, they call it a stamp document. A stamp document comes out. So they stamp the document, right? In Malaysia, dividend are tax exempted, same like in Singapore, because the formula for dividend is revenue minus cost, gross margin minus tax is net profit. And dividend is paid out of net profit after tax. So there is no double taxation to the recipient of dividend. So for that reason, it is always best to take it through LHDN and that it is stamped by LHDN. Now that original copy, 2 copies are stamped, original copy is given back to the investor. Now this subscription agreement is now submitted to SSM, the registry of companies in Malaysia. And based on the number of shares that are subscribed, SSM will register the name of the investor and issue that many shares, which will deliver back to the investor. So this is the full process that it goes through. So I would say, I mean, not comparing to any other investment products out there or any other, agriculture or any other plantation investment opportunities out there, but the investor must do an independent due diligence on the documents available, the flow of those documents, must get a legal opinion on the documents that they receive, also must get, if possible, an audit, a financial audit review, because if the company has been filing their audits, it will be available online. And from there, you can see the profitability of the company, whether they have been paying their taxes or not, or whatever numbers that have been claimed year-over-year revenue, margin, and things like that, that will be in the submissions, right? So at least 1 or 2 years of submission should be there. If the company only started last month and you want to invest, then I think the risk is on you. I wouldn't say that don't invest, but the risk is there and more due diligence must be done. Yeah. So I think this is how, I would answer your question.
A very complete answer, definitely. Okay. So I think we want to follow up on that. So let's move on to the treebank blockchain. We understand that Finterra did try to launch its own token. How is this treebank blockchain or TBTX different? This info can be found in PitchIn, the landing page. So would you like to explain this further?
Yes. Coming from a history of blockchain with the Wakaf and with so many other projects, again, in this project, in the plantation project, we are introducing the use of blockchain in plantation. Now, currently where we are is, I think any project goes through phases, right, for a very well executed execution. So initially was that we started off 500 acre pilot, which is just pure plantation and legal structuring. That has grown to 2,500 acres already today. And I think we have reached a comfort level where the first pieces of technology has started going into the project. Okay. So on a timeline basis, we have 4 years, for this project to complete 10,000 acres. And in this 4 years, the components of technology that are going in, one is we are creating a wealth management app. And any investors that are coming into this structure will have access to this mobile app, and they will be able to see their portfolio. So if they are subscribing into this IRPS, they'll be able to see the IRPS, how much is investment, what is the dividend, their dividend payout schedule, their statement of account, project updates, and all of that, right? So this product, we are calling it the Finterra Ventures, is already available in Google Store, in Apple Store, and all existing investors already have access to this. This was launched officially last April, okay? And it is in the form of a wallet, okay? But you cannot deposit anything, you cannot take out anything, it's a dashboard. So it is a wealth management, portfolio management type of a tool. So this is already there. Now, next stage is that we want to introduce blockchain for traceability purpose, not for a cryptocurrency purpose. Because every tree that is being planted from the seedling, a QR code is fixed to the seedling at the bottom of the tree. It comes out from the lab with a QR. And that QR code goes all the way onto the tree until it is harvested, right? So we are scanning those QR codes and putting them onto a blockchain. And then periodically, when it is scanned for, as it grows every month, every quarter, we update that into the blockchain. We are creating traceability. So the biggest issue in the plantations industry, right, especially here in Malaysia, is traceability issue. You have heard about palm oil industry, right, getting sanctioned by US and EU because of traceability, human trafficking, and a lot of other issues that they do not know the source of this oil. Same thing happened with the latex and latex gloves last year. All the big companies, glove companies got sanctioned because of the traceability issue, right? So in our case, we are setting up this blockchain to create traceability from the seedling until harvest, and a certification will be issued for the log when it goes to the sawmill or when it is exported. So the source of the tree is known at all times. It is not illegally logged or taken from the virgin forest. So I think we are not doing any cryptocurrency for the tree banking. It is a traceability solution, which is a back-end supply chain system for traceability, and it is available to the planting partner and until the sawmill. So this will be built. We are looking at starting third quarter of this year. We are starting the build, and it should be released somewhere by first quarter of next year. So it will not be available as any tokens to be listed or tradable, this, that. Yes, there is a full blockchain. There'll be traceability, but these are not tokens for distribution. They are tokens only for traceability purpose.
Understand. Wow. Okay. Very complete answer again by Mr. Hamid. So I think you talked about investments and as an investor, maybe we can move on to Prof Ahcene. Prof Ahcene, as a Shariah Advisor, you also play an ambassadorial role for Finterra. To what extent of due diligence on the business and investment does a Shariah Advisor do before putting a halal stamp on the product or investment? Prof Ahcene?
Thank you very much. Of course, before providing an endorsement on Sharia compliance or on any product similar to the other similar practices in banking, Islamic capital market, and Islamic insurance product and services. So basically, we're applying the same SOP and the same process, which basically could be summarized, in the case of Finterra or similar investments. Normally, of course, we have to look at the IM, which is the main documents that normally is a kind of template provided by the security commissions to go through, which combine the entire informations about the company, the issuers, basically cash flow projections, the marketing, the due diligence, the economic outlook, and other related informations, about the product. So we'll go through that documents. The second stage also will look at the term sheet, which is a very crucial because the term sheet is a very important component that contain the Sharia elements, contain the Sharia contract principle deploy, talking about the redemptions, talking about the Sharia contract use, talking about the rate provided, talking about other commitments and obligations that at the end of the day, it is like a contract between the investors and the issuer. Because this is an investment scheme, so typically you have the issuer, then you have the investor. So this term sheet will be reviewed as well. The other point, which basically also is a part of term sheet or the IM, is the structure of the investment itself. Whether it is a musharaka or it is a mudaraba or it is wakala bil istithmar. So we have to look and review the entire structure, which include basically the flow of the funds, meaning, for example, as you know, it's a chart and it has the numbers and it has the steps and it has a sequence. So we have to look at the flow, we have to look at the sequence, we have to look at the movement of the funds. And normally the structure is governed by some terms and conditions, which somehow captured in the illustration and the descriptions of that chart. So we will validate that one as well. Then the other point, it goes to the sequence of the executions of the investment. As you know, sequence is very crucial in Islamic finance. Like you are not allowed to sell what you don't have. You have to do the acquisition, then you sell. You cannot sell before you have the acquisitions of the asset, those things, so it has to be in place. The sequence is very, very, very important. The other point normally we look at is also the combinations of contract, because as you know, in an investment scheme or any product or services in Islamic banking, Islamic capital market or insurance, you have always a kind of a program or a facility agreement which combine few contracts and combine different parties. So it is a very important, crucial that we have to make sure that the combinations of the contract are placed and structured in a Sharia compliance manner. And as you know, there is a standard on that by IOFI, talk about the combination of contract, I think standard 25, if I'm mistaken. So it's a very important, what's so-called a component to look at, because the non-proper combination of the contract or the non-proper sequence of the contract may lead to non-Sharia compliance event, which even impact the profitability of the profit generated. So these two crucial, normally we will look at that carefully. Over and above what has been mentioned, there are legal agreements, there are documentations, there are agreements, there are trustee documents, application forms, subscriptions, agreements, all these related documents. We have to go through them also. And normally, especially on the trust in others, to some extent, they are standard in nature. But yet we have to go through those documentation to make sure basically the investments in its structure, in its sequence, in its combinations, in its documentation, in its content, in the contract deployed in the investments, being, as I mentioned, a mudarab, a musharak, or wakala bil istithmar, are designed according to the Sharia requirements. So those are basically the various angles we will go through. If, of course, we have further inquiries, I will go back to the party to seek further clarifications, further informations once we are satisfied. And sometimes we have comments, so we address those comments, those amendments to the parties, to the issuer. And of course, the issuer has to express his consent on those amendments, those changes. So at the end of the day, once the draft is in a good shape, satisfy the requirements and the checks screening and the SOP that we have. So we will just issue the final version of the documents, then we'll provide the Sharia compliance a certificate for that. Of course, that's when we follow up normally in practice, a kind of Sharia compliance review, which is normally conducted once a year in order to make sure basically the investment scheme is running according to what has been endorsed. That's normally what we do. And what I have mentioned in the same practice in banking, in Islamic capital market, locally, international. So it's a kind of a standard requirement for that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof Ahcene.
Yeah.
That was a very complete.
Yeah, just to update you, Ridwan, on the same matter, right, of compliance. Recently, we got approval from the SC licensed ECF platform, PitchIn. So that also we went through a very, very comprehensive, review before we were given approval, and they actually put us on their platform. Very comprehensive, to the point that a whole team from their company went to the plantation itself physically to go and see that this is the land. They want to see the land marking. They want to see the tree, because you're claiming that 500 acres is completed. They want to see the completed. They want to see what the 6 months look like, 1 year looks like. So that was a very lengthy process, of compliance review. Also looking into our audited reports, our tax, and all of that. Once they were fully satisfied, they give the approval, and that's why today Finterra Global Plantation is already on the PitchIn ECF platform. And how we structured it is that we have given them all rights to raise retail funds. Yes. Finterra doesn't want to be involved in managing retail investors, so all retail investors go through them, and they manage everybody. We only have been looking at accredited investors, where we go through the KYC, the whole accreditation process before we take them on. And in the process right now, what is in the works is that we are working on IM. So our auditor and legal is working on an IM to directly submit to SC, and will be queried by SC, and we'll get approval from SC to launch a separate fund post the IM. So right now that is in the works. Yeah.
I was just about to ask about PitchIn, but then because the next question is on PitchIn itself.
Okay.
So besides PitchIn, right, where investors can place their money in, Finterra's yes. Plantations investment is a private yes. placement, as you mentioned.
Correct.
You can't publicize the investment to the public. Why start with private placement instead of a fund or instead of any other means?
See, believe me, we even didn't know that this will be this big and this successful. We thought we'll just do 500 acre or a little bit more and stop. So maybe a bunch of 10 or 15 investors, family and friends, and that would be it. But Alhamdulillah, since then, we have realized that this is a very, very feasible business. This is a very potential business, and there is a lot of interest from the investor community. So we are quite selective. Definitely family and friends are into this investment with us, but also we are opening up to accredited investors. But we have never promoted it publicly, right? So we have to be compliant to the regulation. There have been never any public forums on it, public advertisements on it. It's always one-on-one. basis. And if their interest level is there, then, we sign them up in our office. Anything to do with the public part of it, then we just direct them with a link to PitchIn platform. So we did have few Zoom sessions with PitchIn to their investors. That was like a public forum and advertised on social media, but it was only for the PitchIn part. So I think compliance, again, we try to come back that whatever we are offering must be fully compliant.
Understand. We have so little time, but I think let's move on to the last question that we have. So what's next for Finterra? You have e-wallet, payment gateways, blockchain, plantations investing. So what's next?
Yes. I would say that, in the last 2 years now, 2020, 2021, kind of the business of Finterra is crystallizing into few focus areas. And rather than addressing too many things, it's better to address few things, but get very good at it. So 3 things that we have crystallized, and we are now, growing this bigger. One is our blockchain solution offering, which is purely software subscription, cloud-based subscriptions, and royalties. So a lot of OCAF, a lot of charity organizations are subscribing to our systems. We are deploying it for them as white label, and we just charge them annual licenses and subscription maintenance, support, and services. So that is one, stream of business. The second stream of business, is again through our alliances and all, is Islamic microfinance. We have invested a lot of time and money into developing the platform and launching it. And alhamdulillah, slowly it is growing, but it is a very solid business. It takes time to grow and it takes time to comply, but it is very solid and it is growing. So we launched this business with partners in East Africa last year. And alhamdulillah, so far, we have already gone into supply chain financing, into fuel financing. And most recently, we are also looking into a FMCG, a supply chain finance. So that is another vertical that we are focused on, and we want to grow it more. The third is now project development. I wouldn't say plantation. Plantation is just a project. What does Finterra know about plantation? Do I actually go to the farm and dig and plant and maintain and fertilize? No, I don't do any of that. We have a whole bunch of partners that do that, and they are part of this JV equation that do their part. Our part is technology still, whether it is blockchain or fintech technology, and the structuring. So with the help of Salihin, we are structuring this product. We are creating a compliant product, and we are very good at marketing this product to investors globally. So like that, we are also looking into other projects. So, on and off, we do go and look at potential projects. I think the next project, just to let the cat out of the bag, that we are working on and should be coming online quite soon. Again, we went with that, mindset that we came from the Wakaf background. We should look into creating a green, sustainable, and Sharia compliant, solution. So we are looking into setting up a solar farm. Oh, wow. So totally different, right, from the plantation. So we are now in advanced stages of the technology, the land acquiring, and a solar farm to be set up actually in Europe. So last 2 months I was there. Certain MOUs with the government there have been signed, with the government of Bosnia have been signed. Technology partners have been onboarded. Right now, the due diligence and the feasibility study is going on to set up a 5 megawatt solar farm that will pump the electricity into the European EU grid. Initially will be a pilot project of 5 megawatt, and then it will grow on phases, batches of 5 megawatt in that way. So once this is done, and initially Finterra will put its own money to develop this and see for some time that it works perfectly, and then we will structure, and we have been discussing with Salihin again, how to structure a sukuk, a green sukuk for a solar farm. So inshallah, that is targeted to go live actually somewhere first quarter of 2024. So that's in advanced works, certain agreements, and all of those are underway right now. So this, I hope, will be our next large project.
Oh, very, very, very exciting. I was just about to ask about sukuk and why didn't you go for sukuk as well? as what Prof Ahcene mentioned just now, Sharia standard,
Yes.
right, on investment sukuk in AOF. But it's very, very exciting. We have some questions from the public. So I think we will end it with these two questions.
Sure.
Even though I would like to ask further questions, but time is not on our side. So first question, do you accept foreign funds in USD perhaps? And what's the arrangement there?
Okay, yes. The trustee that we have engaged with, they have given us two currencies, Malaysian ringgit and US dollar. So yes, international funders can come in and deposit US dollar to the trustee account, and their dividends will be paid back in the US dollar denomination, as well as their capital return will be in US dollar. So we are saying that there will be no forex loss in any conversion between US dollar to ringgit. So yes, right now we are working with two denominations, and we are getting a lot of interest coming from Australia recently. So the Australian investors are interested in depositing Australian dollar. So we are in negotiation with our trustee to also give us Australian dollar accounts.
Yep. Okay. Very interesting. Australians are looking into investing. So second question, how can Singaporeans take part? So is this PitchIn available for is this PitchIn campaign available for Singaporeans, or is the private placement open for Singaporeans only?
Okay, PitchIn is open internationally, not looking into the restricted countries of Sudan, North Korea, and few others, but is open to all other countries. PitchIn, unfortunately, only provides Malaysian ringgit denomination because it is licensed here. But you can use your credit card, your debit card, or your TT in your currency, and when you transmit, it will arrive in Malaysian ringgit. So there might be some forex loss or forex gain either way, but they will take the deposit only in Malaysian ringgit. But it is open internationally to Singaporean or to anyone. And of course, you just have to go and register with them. They do a light KYC. And once you pass that, then they will accept your deposits.
Thank you so much to the both of you. It's been a pleasure having both of you. Even though I have so much questions, but you seem to have answered a few of them. For example, the sukuk, as well as the preferential shares. But if anyone would like to know further, they can either contact us and then we'll refer you to Finterra, or if not, then we can just channel Finterra's social media in our campaign or in our posting later. Again, thank you so much, Prof Ahcene and Mr. Hamid, for this session.
Thank you, Ridwan.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hassan.
Yes.
Thank you, Ridwan.
And so this is the end of the session. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. If you have any questions, you can just send it to us on our email or on our platforms, and we will also be able to channel these questions to Finterra. Okay, and if not, we will end the session. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Walaikum assalam. Thank you and good evening, everyone.
Assalamualaikum.
Walaikum assalam.